We're live.
All right. Hey, good evening, everybody. How y'all doing tonight? Josh, you on here?
Yes, sir. I'm on.
Hey, man. First and foremost, thank you for joining us. I see you got this fresh shave going on over there. But, brother, before we even start, man, I just want to say something that's really been on my heart all week. And what that is it's the conditions of our brothers and sisters living inside of these correctional facilities right now with COVID going on, man. Um, I just want to say a prayer for them, but I want to talk about, like, while we talk about Black Lives Matters and we talk about the movement, I want to talk about how that also has to count for Black living conditions, man. Have you seen the videos and the different things that's going on inside the correctional facilities yet?
Yeah, I've seen videos. I've heard from people, who got people that's experiencing it. I have a partner or two that's been dealing with that as well. So yeah, it's unfortunate, man. It's a tough situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's crazy how they doing them in there.
yeah, it is, brother. And when I say the fact that you got people who are living the fact that you got people who are living in rooms that's got sitting water that's been sitting for over a month. You got people who've been on 24-hour lockdown since February. Man, this is unlivable, bro. Like these conditions, man. This inhumane to the fullest. And it's like we talking about Black Lives Matter, which is very important that we look at the injustice and the deaths, especially here in Atlanta, where we keep having police killings of innocent Black people. But we got to look at the
Mhm.
millions of people who are living in unlivable situations. Not just the people incarcerated, but people who can't pay their bills because their jobs are making them work 30, 40 hours, with 30, 35 hours, so they can't get full time. People who are working for wages that aren't livable. Man, we just got a lot of different things that we got to look at inside of our community to the point where we got to start standing up for all of this stuff, man. Like we have participants in different prisons across the country, and we had a hard time catching up with our participants to be able to, just check up on people, right?
No,
Well,
absolutely. And to touch on something real quick, I mean, for me, that's what Black Lives Matter means to me. You know what I mean?
mhm.
It's not just focusing on one aspect, man, but I think all areas and how we're affected across the board, no matter where we are or what we're dealing with. So
Exactly.
I'm glad that you mentioned that and touched upon that.
Yeah, man. And I feel like we had to be the people to share it because we have a platform, we have a voice, and we had to make sure that our brothers and sisters who aren't living in those conditions know about the other people who are. Because it's just, man, I had one person who called me from a correctional facility here in Georgia. Do you know that somebody died in their cell from COVID? They came and got that person's body, and they still had them in 24-hour lockdown inside that same cell.
No, I
They are
believe it.
still inside the cell with the person who passed inside the cell with them from COVID.
Yeah,
Like,
I
come
believe
on,
it.
man. Like, this ain't. We can't do this, man. Tonight, what I wanted to talk about was I wanted to let some of our non-black allies talk about why Black Lives Matters in the movement, why is it important to them, why did they step up and contribute, and what does it mean to them as non-black people to be able to be, just present as much as possible. What is it that is encouraging them? So that way we can let people who are outside of some of the issues that we face, let them understand, like, this isn't a black issue. This is an American issue. This is a human rights issue. So I really want us to be able to hear from them and touch on that. But I just had to talk about the situations that's going on inside these correctional facilities. I did 5 years myself, and it's already hard enough. Like I wouldn't wish prison on some of my worst enemies, man. Like my time really did change my life and save my life because it gave me the opportunity to learn and to grow and to sit still and just be able to re-examine who I wanted Keith Strickland to be, right?
Right.
So I'm thankful for every second that I did. But for all the people across the country who are sitting here serving time that is unwarranted, you know what I'm saying, for this attack against drugs, which became an attack against black men and have millions of black men is being convicted felons right now and haven't served time. Like this got to end, man. We got people like the judge who falsely convicted thousands of juveniles and then sold them to the prison system who got released early from federal prison. But then you got people who've been arrested for $100 or $500 worth of weed, and they still sitting inside of a correctional county correctional facility somewhere if they haven't been sent down the road for it. Like
Hmm.
this ain't right, man. And we got to stand up and really start looking at like this really is the slave industry all over again. When you look at the conditions that they're keeping our brothers and sisters in, it's ridiculous. Ridiculous. But let's go ahead and let our guests come on in. We got Lauren and we got Jeff tonight. If we can we go ahead and bring them onto the screen? Do you see this? I went for a bike ride tonight, and I thought that I might just do an on location, and I happened to do that on the night where it's been a storm. So we're gonna see how that's gonna work out. But can we go ahead and bring Jeff and Lauren in?
Hey, how you guys doing?
We're doing great. How y'all doing this evening?
Good.
How are
Good to
you?
see you both.
Yeah,
You as well.
likewise.
I'm Jeff. Nice to meet you, JP.
Nice to meet you too, sir.
All right. If you don't mind, can you guys give a little background on who you are and what you do, and let people know how involved you've been in the movement? I know you guys are humble and that's putting you on the spot, but I would love for people to understand, like, what exactly have you guys been doing and your level of commitment and all the resources you brought to the table so far.
Yeah. So we started out by providing a mobile PA system to rallies and organizers, like right when the protest started. We both work in film. I work as a sound person, so that was a tool and a skill that we had right away. So we started with that, just providing amplification for these voices, literally. And then as we got connected to regular organizers, we started working with them in other capacities.
Yeah, definitely. So we started with the mobile PA system. We got to know a lot of the leaders here in Atlanta. So we got to know Attorney Griggs and Keith and a lot of the like younger up and coming organizers who are just some of the best people. And let's see, we helped out a few of our state representatives with different educational talks or like talks for the media. But actually the next step that we took was after a conversation that we had with Keith, because he was explaining kind of what the district attorney does and what a solicitor general does and what the mayor does and does not control. There's a bunch of stuff that I never knew. And we're out here using our energy, using our voices to protest police brutality and injustice, but we're not always using our energy in the best ways.
In the most efficient way.
Right. And so after that, I started an Instagram page that largely focuses on municipal politics and the elections this year. Joe Biden has enough money to pay for ads, but our state representatives don't. And a lot of people don't know who they are. And I'm a graphic designer in film. And so I had the tools, and luckily I now have the resources, the people who I can ask for advice, and I put that together.
So I know you guys are really humble, but I do want to just put you on the spotlight for a quick second. When you look at some of the biggest protests we've had in Georgia, where you talking about we brought out 20, 25,000 people at a time. And when we talk about the NAACP program you guys helped with over at the federal building, I believe we did about 50,000 people at that protest, right? And you guys, and 50,000 maybe, it may have been a little under 50,000, but I know it was somewhere in that area. You guys provided the equipment so that they could have a PA system, so that they got a sound. You guys provided film crews so that they can actually document this, so that they can create many documentaries. You guys have done a lot to be able to push the movement forward. And what I wanted to ask you guys is, what about this compelled you to get involved? Like, what about watching your Black brothers and sisters struggle in the living conditions that they're under, and then just watching people lose their life without any justice? What made you say, I'm gonna invest my own time and my own money, I'm gonna use my skill set and my equipment to just help make sure that these people can get a better quality of life for themselves, their community, their children? Like, what pulled you? And not just you, but you guys have built a whole team of allies. So you have a whole crew of people who go out and film now. So just about everything has coverage. You make sure that every event has the proper sound system, which is a huge deal because it's hard to speak to a group of thousands of people at a time when you don't have the sound equipment to be able to do it. So I really just, I would love just to hear what pulled you out to make you want to be involved.
Definitely. It's definitely gonna
Yeah, I
rain.
know. Yeah.
So it's interesting. So more than a few people have asked us at various points throughout the protest, like, why are you out here? And why are you out here so much? Because we for a while there, we really were out there most days.
Or even like a couple rallies a day.
Yeah.
It's,
Believe me, I've seen you.
yeah. So it's funny because this almost seems like this is just where we're supposed to be. Like, this is what you're supposed to do when you have resources. You're supposed to stand up for people however you can, but also to amplify, like in this case, amplify Black leadership however we can. Like, I think that's really important. So I think that, like, these are human rights, like Black rights are human rights. Fighting for equality, equity, and justice should not be a political issue. Everybody's a son, everybody's a child, everybody's a mom, a dad, a cousin, everyone's a person. So yeah, this is where we're supposed to be. Like, this is the right thing to be doing right now.
Yeah, I think about it like if a partner of mine, a brother of mine, and I were climbing an obstacle together, and I got over it and didn't turn to pull them up with me, then what's the point? I really wanted to use the foothold I had to pull.
Yeah, the privilege and the resources that we have to do whatever we can within our power to improve everybody's life.
So Josh, are you still here?
Yes.
Okay. I want to ask you, because you also work with a lot of different people from different backgrounds. What are some of the things that you've noticed about some of our allies who come out and make sure that they are a part of the movement? Some of the people who, even like when we were downtown during the protest, some of the people who put their life in jeopardy or were in danger, which both of them did also. When they were out there shooting tear gas, when the police were out there, they were right there alongside everybody else. But what are some of the things you've noticed about some of our allies who've been coming out and making sure that, you know, they're using their resources, or they're just making sure that they're standing up? Because I mean, I really commend you guys, because for a lot of us, we live in a constant fear. Our family members live in this fear, right? We have no choice but to stand up and fight, because if not, then our children are gonna go through the same things we going through, and you know, nothing's gonna change. But for you guys, it's different. It's you guys are being empathetic because you're watching what other people are going through, and it's not directly impacting your household, but you're still there as if it was. But Josh, what do you think about that? What have you noticed with some of our allies?
Well, I think for one, with us in our community, I think that we should be a lot more open to having whoever come out and support, you know, for the cause. I've been to some protests, and just like how Lauren mentioned earlier, like, you know, why are y'all here? You know what I mean? And it's just like, I mean, why can't we be here? You know, I think a lot of times people don't really understand whether it's because they just want to stand up, you know, for everybody to have, to be equal and to feel equal. Maybe they have friends, maybe they have family who are African American or who look like us, you know. Some people have kids that are, you know, biracial, you know what I mean? And things like that, you know, it could be whatever it is that motivates them. But I wish that, especially in our community, that we would kind of peel back some of that energy and understand that we all in this together, and it's going to take everybody. It's going to take a united front. So, you know, I want to salute y'all, because I think that that's amazing, you know. And instead of focusing on why, let's just continue to build and figure out how, you know, how we can figure out a way to strategize and organize even better. So in order to have a much more powerful impact. I also think too that there are a lot of people who look like y'all that want to get involved, but they're either scared or they don't want to, or they feel like, well, I don't really have a dog in this fight, and that's not true. You know what I mean? And I feel that no matter what, we're getting it from both sides. In our community, if we're not standing up, then it's like you're a part of the problem. And with your community, it's like, well, why are y'all here? You get what you want. And it's all of these different narratives instead of understanding that we should be coming together, because I think we've had certain pictures painted for so long, and it's time to erase a lot of those stigmas. And again, I mean, and I don't know if y'all see it or y'all feel it, but a lot of the youth in our communities are literally terrified of white people or white cops for that matter, just on sight. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah, we got to change that narrative. Yeah.
yeah, and it's hurtful in itself, and it's just so many things that's going on both sides of this thing. And I'm glad that we're able to bridge the gap, and I'm glad we're able to educate people and let them know that there are people out there, plenty of people that care and that love Black people, or they just love human beings in general, and they want to see everybody getting along and having equal rights and having the same opportunities and things like that, because we have to function in this world together, you know. So that's my take on it.
So I want to like be a little transparent and a little like share a little my personal background, right? So for me, growing up, I lived in a Spanish community and Black community, and then I lived in a Black community, but I never lived around white people, right? So when I was young, then I started selling drugs. The only white people I knew were white people who came to our neighborhood to buy drugs from us. So every white person that we knew, we called them white boy something, like white boy Josh, white boy Mark, white girl Erica, you know what I'm saying? Like, because that was the only white people we knew. The only time we saw them was when they came to buy stuff from us, right? Mm-hmm. And the only time we would see a white person, if they weren't buying something from us, is when they were coming to buy houses in our neighborhood and then rent the houses back to us. When white police officers used to come into our neighborhood, they used to pat us down like, you know, like we were criminals. When I was in middle school, we would be on our way to school or walking to the store. Red dot would pull up, they jump out, or just regular police pull up, jump out with guns. And mind you, we middle school students. And they would check us from head to toe, sometimes bring the dogs out on us. When they pat you down, they do it where, you know, you might have to sit down on the dirt or lay down on the dirt while they pat you down. Just really humiliating and just dehumanizing things. So I can understand the fear, because anything you're ignorant of, anything that you're not used to, you're going to have a fear of, because you're not going to become accustomed to it. So I get that in our community, a lot of our bad stories have been bad stories of what white people have done to Black people. And when I was serving time in a federal facility, every morning I used to get to fighting with a group of white dudes. Every single morning they would jump me. They would have Ku Klux Klan rallies inside of our jail. There was a Grand Master who was locked up in my dorm, and he kind of ran that dorm with the white guys. So mind you, I'm the only Black person in the dorm, so clearly I'm gonna have problems, right? And I went through that for the first few months being inside that dorm. The guards wouldn't move me because they were part of the Klan. I had seizures, and the guards wouldn't let me see the nurse because they didn't treat Black people at that facility. So I've had my experiences, but then I've also had bad experiences with every other group of people, right? Like when I got kidnapped, I've been kidnapped 3 times. It was all Black people that kidnapped me. I've been shot at when people try to carjack me and they try to rob me. Those were Black people that carjacked me and robbed me. So you can't let your past experiences determine how you're going to judge a person who you haven't had contact with yet, right? So I agree with what Josh is saying. Like, we got to get in front of people. We got to be willing to shake their hands, be willing to have a conversation, and then let that let the relationship determine who is the person in front of you. You get what I'm saying? Like, every person you interact with is not going to be a good person, but they're not going to be a bad person either. That's determined on the person, not determined on their skin color, not determined on their background. I was swimming in a community pool at one of my friends' houses years ago. And when I got in the pool, it was a white family swimming in the pool with their children before we got there. When I got in the pool, the father ushered for his children to get out the pool. And I noticed this. And the children were playing. I told the father, I said, you know what, sir? I would rather get out the pool than, you know, for your family to not be able to enjoy themselves. The father got out the pool, let the kids stay. And me and the father sat to the side and had a conversation. He told me where he was from, he had never had Black friends or Black neighbors or Black people who he communicated and associated with. So while we sat down and we had a conversation, he asked me if I wanted to play volleyball with his family in the pool. Because he, like, once he talked to me, it broke down a lot of the barriers of what he thought Black men was like. But if we had not had that conversation, if I had just taken offense to him treating me the way he had this preconceived notion about Black people before he met me, so it wasn't personal, because this was how he looked at Black people prior to meeting me. If I had not used that as an opportunity to break down that wall, he would have left thinking the same thing he thought when he came.
Mhm.
So I'm saying that to say that we had a situation when we were at a protest together, and I'm sure you guys remember this, where you guys were standing on the side and somebody said something about you guys being there. And I'm speaking, and there's a couple of hundred people. This was the protest we had in front of in front of the state bar. Yep,
Oh,
exactly. And that's when I stopped the whole protest to have a conversation about that. I let them know the equipment we were using, you guys brought that equipment, and that you guys have been working with us for quite some time. So if you're going to show me respect, then you have to show them respect because we're together. And then I had you, Jeff, to come up and speak and introduce yourself. And we had to talk about that with the entire group to let people know we can't do that. Like, these people are here because they care about your family and your children. You remember we had the young lady who had just had the newborn and the other person who was pregnant, and we all had to sit down and talk in front of the whole group so that we can break down that wall right there. So all of these things, that's why I wanted to have this show tonight. I wanted to be able to talk with you guys because I wanted us to be able to really let people know that the only way we win this fight is if we win it together. Like, we're not going to win this fight separate. We're not going to win this fight trying to do it on our own. We're definitely not going to win this fight putting out our own biases before we even have interactions.
Definitely. To kind of build off of what you're saying, I'm gonna just share a little bit about our own family. Is that we do have Black family members and we do have Hispanic family members, and Jeff and I have both like lived in a lot of places. We met living in Miami. I used to live in South Miami. I couldn't speak English at the grocery store if I wanted to get it. And so, and like, frankly, I grew up in the north side of Chicago and then Indianapolis, mostly in white neighborhoods. But something that I've had a lot of conversations with friends is like, the only men who've ever hurt me were white men. So I got as far away from what I knew for a while. I went to Miami. And I think that both in our life before this wave of protests and during this wave of protests, folks are uncomfortable with us sometimes, and that's okay. I think I try to radically love people, even if they don't want me to be there. I just I love you, and I know this is you're coming from a place that is probably justified. And I don't need to know the entire story, and it's not important that I'm treated politely, I guess. It's not important. It's important that I keep showing up whenever I can with the resources that I have, and I keep radically loving people.
Yeah, I think that to your point, Josh, about how important it is for all of us to come together. So one thing I realized when we started to get involved was how much I was learning about the Black community, because I grew up in the Southwest, so with a lot of Mexican communities, Native American communities. I speak Spanish, so I had been exposed to quite a diverse group of people, but not any Black communities. And so I think being involved in the protests and living in Atlanta, I learned a lot about Black culture and became more comfortable with it. But I also realized during the protests that us being out there, we were kind of, and just us being out there and treating people like people, getting to know them, acting normal. I don't know what else to say about it. That was also important, I think, for some of the people that we were working with.
Yeah.
There are some people who I think are understandably really angry and suspicious of us, and we can feel that. And so I feel like for me, it's just a job in the community to keep showing up and just greeting those people warmly like I always do.
Yeah, just with love.
Yeah, just, hey, hi. And eventually
we'll be one community.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys this. If you were talking to, like how Josh said, other people who are non-Black right now, who are in different cities, different states, and they wanted to get involved in the movement, like Josh just mentioned, a lot of people are going to be uncomfortable. They're going to be afraid. They're not going to know how to make that first step or how to reach their hand out. What advice would you give those people? What would you tell them? Because like you just said, you got to be radical in your love. You got to be intentional in your love. You got to understand that there was damage and scarring that took place before you showed up, and that other people may not have been as kind as you have been. So what would you say to them to be able to get them prepared, to be able to engage and to just be a partner and an ally?
What I would say is that you might be uncomfortable. You might make a mistake. You might say something stupid or commit some kind of faux pas. But if you acknowledge when you make those mistakes and you apologize and be honest with the people that you're talking to, you'll be closer usually. It's worth the work, but it can be uncomfortable.
So just throwing out something, right? Oh, my fault, Josh. Go ahead.
No, if I could add something real quick, because I also think this is important for those who are listening. Can you talk about the pushback that you get in your own community, if you do get any? And if not, what would you say to somebody who is getting pushback in their own community, like in your own community, rather? You know what I mean? Because that's another thing that I think is causing so many more people not to speak out and not to support, because of the learned behavior and because they don't want to have that target on their back. You know, I posted a video at the beginning, I think week 2 of the protest, and there was this young 19-year-old Caucasian girl. I'm assuming she's fresh in college, but she went to like the redneck part of whatever town she was in, and she had the Black Lives Matter sign. And when I tell you these people put their hands on her and pushed her and took her sign and was just harassing her on another level, and it was just like, man, like y'all really have hate so much in your blood, which ultimately is, again, it's something that's learned. It's nothing to do with anything else. It's just somebody just say, hey, we not fooling with this side, you know. And I just want to know, because I think your point of view will help somebody watching this and maybe encourage them to want to connect or step out or do something, because everybody's voice, everybody's presence, everybody's, you know, how they feel about this thing is, as far as it in a positive manner, it matters, like, because we need all of that. You know, we need a united front, no matter what that looks like.
Definitely. So talking about the pushback that we get within our own communities, it's so Jeff and I are really lucky that the most of the family that we're close with, actually all of the family that we're close with, either supports us being at these rallies, like is proud of us to be out here. My mom's super proud. My like grandma doesn't totally get why we need to march all the time, but she's proud.
Right.
Like that's all you can ask for. I do have members of my family who are like really big Trump supporters, really big, frankly, they're bigots. But we stopped talking 4 years ago when the travel ban all started to happen. So I say that to say this. I think that racism is like a disease. So for some people, it's like the common cold. You just got to give them a little bit of love and work, like take care of them, and they'll get over it. And other people, it's like cancer, and they're gonna have it forever.
Yeah, I'm very close with my grandfather, and he's a person that has influenced me a lot as a person, but I had challenging conversations with him when the protest started. He didn't really get where I was coming from. He didn't really understand the issue.
He didn't understand. It's the Black Lives Matter versus the All Lives Matter argument.
Yeah, black on black crime, like
Yeah.
all that. And I just finally decided, like, okay, well, I don't need to keep investing energy into you in this topic. I'm going to move forward with what's important to me, and I think you'll catch up because I think you're a good person.
Yeah.
I think
Right.
you'll catch up.
And I agree with that. I believe that there's walls that have to be broken down, and those walls have been built up for a long time. They've been based on a lot of generational thinking, right? That's just like men who think that men should be above women, right? Like we have to treat women as our equals, and we have to do it and lift our queens so highly to where the men who don't understand why that's so important see us do it to the point where they want to start doing it, where they see the goodness that comes out of us and how that feels inside of us and how it illuminates your spirit, right? And the goodness inside of you is going to spread out to them. It's contagious. So the more that we walk in our purpose, the more that we're the example that we need to be, the more that the people who are a little bit more reluctant to make those changes, the more that they're going to see that the change is okay. The funny thing is a lot of stuff we're talking about, I've had those issues in my own community when it comes to women's rights. It's a lot of things in the women's area of the struggle that I don't go through and I don't understand because they're not a part of my daily life. Josh is probably going to get them better because he's raising daughters, right? And when you're raising daughters, you're a lot more in tune to their emotions and to the things they're going through. But as me as a single man, it's a lot of stuff that until somebody sits down and tells me how that feels, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know how deep it hit and how impactful it's been to your quality of life. So it's things that I may say that come out in ways I definitely do not mean it. It's times where I may show up at a protest that like when we went to Kentucky and we did the Breonna Taylor protest, and they said that, you know, men aren't really needed in this because we're taking a charge. And I'm like, I just marched down the street with you and, you know, I'm here for you. That hurt my feelings a little bit, but I got to understand, you're trying to build your identity and take the power that's been taken from you back. And I wasn't a person that took your power, but you don't know where exactly all your power went to. So you're going to do everything you have to do until you get that power for your daughter, for your sisters, and for yourself. So it's not personal. Again, it's just a group of people who have been ostracized, who are just saying that the oppression ends here. And you have to show up and, like you said, intentionally love. You got to stop being sensitive and understand that these people are fighting for their life. They're not fighting for they're not fighting to be liked. They're fighting for the ability to love to love themselves without anybody standing in the way of that. So
To live.
If I could add one more thing
to definitely
to Josh's question. Most people are good people, I think. I think they try to be good people.
Yeah.
Some people in your family you might have to temporarily leave behind. But if they're good people, you keep loving them.
They'll circle around.
Yeah.
At least we hope, right?
Inshallah, yeah.
Yeah. I think, and like to also just remark on like what advice would you give hesitant, like non-Black people, hesitant white people about coming out? I'd say that there's a lot of ways to protest. There's a lot of ways to support Black Lives Matter. There's a lot of ways to fight for equality, equity, and justice. I think that if somebody's not comfortable with coming out on the street, either because they don't want their family to see them or because of COVID, which is valid, and they have money, you can donate to bail funds. You can like donate your money to the ACLU. You can donate your money in a lot of ways if you want to be silent and support in a meaningful way. If you don't have money, there are phone banks. You can work for voter registration, which is like seriously tied to equality in our nation, and which is unfortunately a big issue right now. You can have the small conversations with grandma, like if you think it'll get you somewhere. Maybe the small conversations with your cousins, which are actual conversations I've had back about Democratic primaries and like who to vote for. And like actually the Democratic primaries was a great opportunity to talk about like why I don't support Pete Buttigieg. And like, why like I do have some problems with Kamala Harris, and like to really talk about all the diverse points within the Democratic Party with my cousins. So it's like the small work. It's the small, consistent marathon that we just got to keep going. Like, don't tire yourself out. Don't think you can solve this in a day. Just like take care of yourself and keep trying.
Now, one thing I will throw out too. I'll make this quick. One thing I will throw out is that I think that it's very important also to show up to your school board meetings, to show up to your meetings at City Hall, let it be your city council or something with your mayor's office, or even at your commissioner meeting. And it needs to be from allies also, because it needs to you need to show that other community members also see these injustices and want to change them, because there's a lot of things that go on inside of our communities that aren't going to be something that's voted on. It's going to be something that has to be pressure has to be put on. There's a lot of living inequalities that people don't see, to where, you know, if we don't stand up and be a part of that conversation, these things won't change. And if it's only coming from one community, then it's very easy for somebody to disregard that. Like, I remember we had a school that I was on the board of here. It was a middle school and a high school here in the city of Atlanta. And the school sat on a 4-lane street. And the school sat right at the curve of this 4-lane street. So the kids would have to get off of the public transportation bus and cross the street to get into the school. We had no street light. We had no blinking light. We had no stop sign. We called and we called and we called. And then we had some of our allies call from an outside county. They didn't even live in the same county, but because they were white allies, and because when they listen to their calls, they're thinking like, oh, these are people who maybe know how to go through the proper procedures. We ended up getting a stoplight put up. We called for, I want to say we called for about 3 years, and like back to back, and they got this done within maybe like 7 weeks.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, there's ways that you had to show up, because again, it's not just about Black death. It's also about Black living conditions. When you have parents who are horrified for their children that had to cross the street to get into their school, I mean, that's a quality of life issue. 4 kids were hit by buses. You get what I'm saying? 4 kids.
Yeah.
Like, come on, you know. But again, until other people from outside the community stood up and said, hey, we see this and we're not happy with this, nothing was done.
Yeah.
Well, I think Josh had something to
Sorry.
say.
Yeah, Josh.
No. I just was going to quickly say I'm glad that you spoke on the fact of everybody doing their part. You know, that's one message that I've been driving home so heavily, because I think a lot of times people feel that they want to get it right, and it's no wrong. That's the thing. Like, it's no wrong. You can protest, you can post, like you said, having a conversation. You know, how many conversations can you have behind closed doors that you never know what that may spark? And it doesn't matter which community that is. You know, servicing, just like how you talked about, you know, picking up phones or doing certain things, that there's a way that you can, you know, have an effect and be a positive in this whole thing. And I just want to, again, remind people, everybody is important and they're valuable and they're worth it. And we need it. You know what I mean? For any and everything. And I'm also glad that you, and I don't know if that'll be off topic, but I just think it's interesting with, especially now that we have candidates in the running. And I don't want to go off topic, but I definitely want to salute you for bringing up some specific points, because, you know, again, I feel we operate off of emotion so much, and we don't take the time to do the actual research on these people, no matter who it is, no matter what their gender or their color. Like, we can't continue to just keep wanting to see history being made and we're not being taken care of the way that we should be. You know what I mean? And go ahead.
Now, what's so funny is I was going to bring that up at 9:15. I just didn't know how to segue into that, because I didn't want to be you know, when you play spades and you don't want to be the person to break spades, right?
I'm gonna throw that out there.
Exactly. So I guess I could be the first person to jump out with this, right? I'm at a place right now where I would love to be able to see somebody who actually loves all humans and loves all cultures and loves all people, instead of having to think about who do we have to vote that hates us less. And I feel like that's where we're at right now. When I listen to Biden, and first and foremost, I want to just say this: we got to vote the Biden ticket, You know, we don't really have a choice behind that. So for anybody who has anything to say about what I'm about to say, I'm clearly stating we have to vote the Biden ticket, but we have to know who we're voting for so we know how to hold them accountable, so we know how to make sure that the injustices never happen again. So I'll start off by saying this. In the 1970s, Biden said that he didn't want his families to have to integrate with Black children because then it would be like animals mixing with people, and he didn't want his children to have to do that. From 1980s all the way up to 93, he pushed the crime bill agenda. And then when you listen 93, where he talks about how it's tens of thousands of our children who are too far gone, and no matter what social injustice happened, no matter what happened to get them to that place, that's not our problem. We just got to make sure they're not robbing your mother or your sister or my daughter. It's a clear us and them, right? And then when you look at the fact that show me another district attorney who would have almost 1,000 people that had to be released because of false convictions, where you held information back that you used to convict these people. Show me another district attorney who would do that to Black and brown people, mostly men, and we would rally behind them because they were our shining star, right? Show me another district attorney who would make it a criminal charge for parents if their children didn't go to school. Like, if your child is in middle school or high school, it's just very hard to keep your child from skipping school. You can drop them off at the front door of the school. You can watch them walk in and be like, you better stay in school all day. And when you pull off, they could turn right back around and walk out the door. And you're going to make poor families pay $2,000 fines and still have to go to jail because they can't keep their child from going outside of the school doors. The school can't keep the child from going outside the school doors. Are you going to find the school and take money away from the school and put the teachers in jail because the students walk out the school buildings? So I look at a lot of these things. I look at the fact that there was times when weed could have been legalized way before it was, but somebody voted against that, right? I look at all these different things that were directly pointed against the Black and brown community, that imprisoned Black men at an astronomically high rate, and that was just unjust treatment of people. Like, when you incarcerate people, knowing that there's been tampered with evidence inside of your own office, you knew that, and you still incarcerated these people knowing that. When I got my first felony conviction, I was 16 years old. When they read that paper and they say, do you know what it means to take this conviction? Have you been coerced or promised anything? And I told them, no, I don't know what it means to have a felony conviction. And the judge told me, well, you're going to have plenty of time to find out, and still sentenced me and told me I could find out what it meant to be a convicted felon while I sat in prison. That was a part of that whole time period where the war on crime was really a war against Black men. And to see the two people who helped usher that in and push that forward be the Black saviors right now, we just got to do better. We got to vote for people like how you guys are educating people about the different agendas of each person inside of each office. Let it be local, let that be government, let it be state, or let it be national. Like, we have to get to a point where we know who people are, we know what they stand for, we know what their track records are. Like, when we put Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders together and said they both voted on the crime bill, that was very big. That was ignorance. One co-authored the crime bill, another one voted on it because of what was attached to it. You get what I'm saying? And it's things like that our community has to understand. This man did not just vote on the crime bill. He pushed it forward for almost 20 years. So I would love to hear you guys' opinions on this, but I really think it's very important that we start knowing who the elected officials are. And we don't just vote because people look like us. We vote because people love us, and their actions have shown that they've tried to use their leverage and power and position to be able to empower the community instead of ripping it apart. Because there's millions of Black and brown families that are still suffering today because of those actions and because of those policies.
Definitely. I think, like, and one thing that is in the same vein that you were talking about is, like, why haven't we, in states where marijuana is now recreationally legal, why are mostly men still incarcerated for minor drug offenses, minor pot offenses, when white men are on the streets making legal money selling the same stuff? Yeah. Right? It is like, that's a complete lack of common sense. And, like, to be fair, that specific issue, most people in America agree on. Like, everyone's kind of in favor of that right now. It's just the politicians who are caught up.
I think that's targeting. I wouldn't say that's ignorance. I mean, I
No, I
believe
think it's
that's sitting in a room making, that's an intentional decision.
yes.
Like a lot of times we give people these romanticized escapes, right? That's not that you're ignorant to what you're doing. You're looking at a way to keep people down for as long as possible before you have to finally give in.
Keeping people down and keeping people unable to vote.
Mhm.
The more black men that are in jail are the more black men who can't vote in elections. So I think to build a little bit about the political things about voting for people and putting people in office who genuinely respect and stand up for all people, black people, white people, all people. That, I mean, I think that's paramount. It feels like a mountain. That feels like a mountain to climb a little bit.
Yeah.
I know that right now I've personally been focusing more on local elections, so county, municipal, state elections, just because when somebody votes, that's literally where their vote counts the most. Some of these municipal elections are decided by 40 votes. Like that's 40 people, that's your extended family, if you got them out of bed. And I think it all starts actually with fixing voting rights and actually protecting voting rights again and undoing gerrymandering. Because once that happens, I think we can get more accurate representation, and then hopefully and maybe we'll get representatives who actually represent us.
Yeah, and I would also say that a healthy democracy requires a lot of work.
Yeah.
And a big portion of that work is just being informed. And I feel like a lot of Americans are not well informed. Like, I don't think Americans know our history as a country very well. I think it's very like censored and whitewashed, and yeah. And I think that a lot of us aren't getting good news. I think a lot of people are getting news from
Facebook.
Or
Word of mouth. Just
Yeah, word of
people
mouth.
repeating.
Yeah, and that's not helping.
Yeah, that's not accurate. Yeah.
No.
You know, something that's really bothered me that I hear a lot of the conversation around. A lot of people talk about how Black unemployment rates, Black single family household rates, and things of that nature, and talk about how that holds the Black community back from being able to step into a competitive space in the American society. But what they don't look at is in the 1600s when you had the Head Right program, where any head of household from Britain or England, if they wanted to move to America, they got 50 acres of land, and they got not a loan, but a grant to start whatever business they wanted to have on that land. Over 2 million acres of land was given out through that program, and a lot of the families here right now, white families, still are living either on that land, or their families still own that land, or they have monetized whatever was done with that land to where their offspring are still benefiting from that. Then when you look at the 1800s and you look at the Homestead Act, and that was $1 trillion, right? And you look at only 2% of people who were eligible to receive that only 2% were non-white that received any benefit from the Homestead Act, right? So that's 98% all white. And you look at that as that's the creation of the middle class. That's the creation of the higher end white wealth building, right? So you look at that, and that generated home ownership, that generated construction companies, that generated all kind of different ways to where the white economy was just, I mean, literally pumped steroids into the white economy. Then you look at the 1930s, and you look at when we came out the Great Depression, and you look at Roosevelt, and you look at the New Deal, right? And you look at all of the policies that came out of the New Deal. And for the first, I think it was about 40 years, the New Deal was exclusively all white, right? Roosevelt, one of the best presidents we ever had, still all of the programs exclusively all white. Yeah. But we talk about Black people need to pull themselves up. Black people need to make better decisions. They need to do this better, do that better. And nobody in American society, even when you look at the model immigrant programs, right? When you look at the Asian communities and you look at the different things that they got, nobody in American society has pulled themselves up without government funding. And we look at the Black community and we say that the Black community needs to do all of these things as if we're the only people who should be able to just get it right overnight and just be able to change in one generation. Nobody in American history has done that.
Yeah.
So I say that to go back to what you were saying about our local elections and some are most important, but that's why they're all important. A lot of the funding for these type of things is going to come from an executive or a federal level, and it's going to come down. And we have to have people in local politics who do agree to those things and then distribute them fairly. But we got to have people at the top that actually see the need to be able to balance it out. A lot of people don't understand that. That's why it's so important. We have Black counties that are 80% African American. They may be 10 or 15% Caucasian. And the Caucasians come out at a higher percentage to vote, and they control the politics in the entire county. 80% African American. This is voter registration. 80% voter registration African American, 10 to 15% Caucasian, and they vote at a higher percentage, and they control all of the local elections. So I commend you guys for what you're doing to be able to get people the information they need to be able to understand how to point a grievance to the right office, how to understand who inside of that office has the power to determine what's going to be changed, and how do you make sure that you have a conversation and you control who's put in that office, because until you threaten a politician's position, then you're not going to get change. Whoever can guarantee them the election guarantees them the job. Whoever they have guaranteeing them the job is essentially who they work for. So until you become a part of that process, you're not going to be able to get them to do anything on your behalf.
Most definitely.
Anything you want to add to that, Josh? We down to the last 10 minutes, so I just want to make sure if you guys have any closing statements, any thoughts, or anything you want to bring up.
I mean, for me, I just want to give y'all these roses. You know, a lot of times we don't salute and show love, and I think that it's important. You know what I mean? I think that it's important on so many different levels, whether it's between communities or you know, just from a human being standpoint. I salute y'all. I never had the chance to meet either one of you, but keep doing what you're doing because you're inspiring so many. You're inspiring me, myself, and you know, I want to make sure again that I'm continuing to do my part because you know, it's just important. You know what I'm saying? So thank you both. You know what I'm saying? And keep educating, which is another thing that is very important that I love that is what y'all are doing outside of serving. I think the educational part is so important, and that's a reason why so many people don't do anything because they're not paying attention. They don't really know what's going on, or they think they know what's going on. Again, as Keith mentioned, word of mouth. You know, education is a huge part of everything, but keep showing the love that you're doing. Beyond grateful to meet you this evening, and hopefully I will bump into y'all one of these days sometime soon.
Hey, Josh, one thing too, I want to commend you the same way. You are a retired professional athlete. I always throw this out there, 2-time champion, because I mean, that ain't no small thing. So, you know, got to throw that out there. But I've watched you also how other people in professional sports, not just as the athletes, but also people who work in the for the different teams. I've seen you bring them out to the rallies. I've seen you make sure that they're educated on some of the injustices and ways that them and the teams can stand up. So I appreciate that. It's not just you doing it. You bring you out, you bring your family out, you make sure your kids are raised up in it. You make sure that your kids see what other people are going through in communities outside of the ones like where they live in, so that they can understand first, they're privileged, two, that they have a responsibility to those who don't have those privileges. And then you use your level of influence, you use your relationships to make sure that everybody is involved in some kind of way. So I commend you for that. It's a lot of people who are in your position who would go out and, you know, they let their status remove them from other people. But I've watched you do the complete opposite. You spend more time with people who need you and people who you bring resources to them than you do your own peers. And that says a lot.
Salute, King. Appreciate that.
Oh yeah, well deserved. So Lauren,
Yeah.
quick question. You and Jeff, is there any do you guys want to leave any social media? Do you want any way for other people to be able to connect with you? Because this is also a challenge I want to throw out. For people who can build websites, for people who can build apps, for people who have different technical abilities, for people, no matter what city, what state you're in, the movement works better when the movement is branded well, when it has a train and it's on the track going somewhere, when it has the ability to reach people in a clean type of way. So I want to make sure that we are telling people how can they actually invest, how can people help technically, how can people assist, So if you guys want to give anybody social media handles or any kind of way that they could connect with you or any kind of tips of how you can get involved so that you can meet different people who are doing things in your community and then kind of enhance with the work that they're already doing.
Definitely. So speaking to anybody who's in Atlanta or really within Georgia, a lot of stuff that we post is applicable to all of Georgia. You can follow my social media website, which is on Instagram. It's the Gold Dome Breakdown. And there we post a lot about like county politics, municipal politics. Coming up to this, we're doing a series of posts just about like, where's early voting? How can you find your polling place? Like, how do you register for a ballot? How do you see if that ballot's on its way? How do you see if like the Secretary of State's maybe forgotten to send you one? So follow us at Gold Dome Breakdown if you want that information, or if you just want to hook up. And I'm happy to talk with anybody about how to get some things similar going in their town. If they have the graphic design resources, like the media resources, I am happy to talk you through what we've already figured out. Otherwise, like anybody on a broader scale, I'd say figure out who has been leading protests in your town, find your local leaders. They're all on Instagram, they're all on Twitter, and follow them and like follow their lead and then show up the next time that they hold an event.
So for me, I can be reached on Instagram at hipisjerf, HIPISJERF, which is like my goofy nickname. I think I'm going to be releasing stuff soon about the Young Atlanta Leaders Division of the People's Uprising, which is, I believe, some of our next generation of civil rights leaders. And they're a wonderful group to follow also, the People's Uprising on Instagram. And there's a thought that I had that I wanted to share. If you sit down to eat with your neighbors and somebody at your table doesn't have enough food, I don't know how anybody can enjoy their own meal if their neighbors aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that's what's happening.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a beautiful way of putting it.
Definitely. I think to kind of cap things off, I just want to say that I really appreciate both of you. We feel blessed every day to be part of this movement and to have been welcomed into it. And we're so lucky to just have met everyone that we've met so far. So thank you both for having us today.
It's our pleasure. We appreciate your commitment and just always showing up, and not just showing up, but showing up ready to work, showing up eager, and showing up with this great energy and passion. So I truly appreciate you. Like, we worked together several times over several months. So I can really, I've watched it. I've seen it with my own eyes. Like, whatever is needed, you guys are always there and you do everything you can. It's like, you guys don't say, how can I help? You say, what all can I do? You know what I mean? Not it's, if we are working in this space and this is our ability, it's not just there that you serve in every single capacity that you can. So I appreciate that.
Keith, we're standing kind of on your shoulders. You know, I think that meeting you and our conversations with you inspired the Gold Dome Breakdown. It inspired a lot of the other actions that we've taken with documenting the movement.
Yeah.
It's hard to understate your impact on our lives that you've had just in the past few months.
I appreciate that, but that's all God. Like, we are vessels. So what was already in you is just coming out of you, and I'm just thankful that I could play a role in helping them pull that out. But you guys were already, amazing long before we met. So, we just giving you some of the tools so that you can go and give them back out.
Most definitely.
Yeah. All right, guys. It's our time to close out. I just want to thank everybody. And look, you can find us on makingthetransition.org. You can send us an email on the website if you want to follow up on any of the information you heard. If you want to get anybody's contact information, again, that's makingthetransition.org. Go to our contact page, shoot us an email, and we'll respond with whatever information you need. All right, y'all have a great evening. Josh, you got anything you want to say before we go out, brother?
No, sir. Pleasure. Always, man. We're going to keep building and keep doing what we're doing. Like you said, it's God's work.
All right, let me get out of here before it starts raining. Hopefully I can get back to the car before I get wet. All right, y'all, be blessed, and thank you for